So first off, it's pronounced Fatima. It's not Fatima or Fatima. Those are ways of saying it. That's not how I say it. Fat, like thought, and then ma, like duh, Fatima. Not too hard, right? At least my first name. My last name would require some palette diagrams. And we do have more pressing matters than the nuances of Arabic pronunciation to get to today. Namely, who am I and what am I doing here? So, it's been 3 months since I put my first video out, and since then I seem to have blown up a little bit. At least blown up relative to what I expected when I decided to try making a few video essays and see what would happen. For those of you who haven't seen any of my videos yet, I'm not really sure what you're doing here, but to catch you up, I've made a couple of videos on, broadly speaking, the intersection of science and social issues within the context of education, and with an emphasis on physics and astronomy. So check me out. The first one had these big brain quantum mechanics ideas. The second one was basically a drama video about a bunch of scientists. And the third one is where I figured out how to record audio that sounds halfway decent. And since those 3 videos went up, people have been fairly asking me who I am and what I do and what's my research and who's paying me and all these questions. So I figured I'd make some kind of response. Consider this video equal parts channel introduction, curriculum vitae, and grant proposal in which I pitch what exactly it is I'm trying to do here. And as our fun science tie-in to this video that's otherwise mostly just me talking about myself, I'm gonna really lean into that grant proposal bit. I've written a good number of grants in my day, and in my experience, there are 3 things that a good grant proposal explains. Why this researcher, why this moment, and why this funding agency. So that's what I'm doing in this video. I'm going to pitch to you why I'm uniquely suited to do this work, why now is exactly the moment it has to happen, and how you, the viewer at home, can support this endeavor if you are so inclined. Because like PBS, me here with this improved lighting setup is made possible by viewers like you. I promise this is more than just a Patreon commercial. So sometimes I offhandedly refer to myself as an expert in something before going off about it, and I figured I'd actually explain what it is that I'm an expert in. I've had a weirdly long and interdisciplinary academic career, and all of it has kind of come together in what I'm doing here on YouTube. So I guess I'll formally introduce myself as a scholar. I sound like I'm joking, but I'm not. Definitely serious. So I was one of those kids who wanted to study absolutely everything. When I was applying to colleges and putting down what my intended major was, I think it was philosophy and music at the time, but I ended up graduating with degrees in physics, astronomy, and Arabic studies. And I specify 3 degrees and not 3 majors because it is different, it is more work. I have 3 pieces of paper. So in the hard sciences regime, I started doing research. I spent a year working on a neutrino detector, a year doing observational analysis of supermassive black holes, and a year simulating dust dynamics in the Pluto-Charon system. Pluto, though not a planet, is actually a very interesting system. Concurrent to all of that was the stuff I was doing in education. I got involved in this undergraduate teaching assistant thing, and that was a really important moment, not only because I really enjoy teaching, but because it kind of set off a bunch of other education involved things. I got involved with my university's physics education research group. I started writing curriculum. If you took any intro astronomy labs at the University of Maryland after the year 2015, you're welcome. My legacy is data science tutorials. And the last piece of relevant undergrad work was that kind of random Arabic studies degree I did. I always thought that the things I was studying didn't feel related, and in fact, a lot of people in physics tended to take me less seriously when they found out that I was also in the humanities. But in hindsight, it's kind of where I got my academic critical theory chops that are now proving to be very useful as I get more and more involved in the intersection of hard sciences and social sciences. Like, I wasn't reading Karl Marx or Germaine Greer, but I was getting into Edward Said and Munat Tahawi. Non-Europeans can also theorize critically. I actually do have a formal education in things like geopolitics and post-colonialism and xenophobia in post-9/11 America, and all those other fun things that give my science critique just that extra little bit of exotic flavor, that spice that the Europeans went looking for. So then I went to grad school. I eventually did a master's degree and a PhD in astrophysics at a very prestigious university in a very prestigious department. I literally can't say it with a straight face. Oh. It's the important work. I did a PhD in astrophysics. That's the important part. I guess I did the grad school version of what I did in college where I wanted to study everything. I started grad school as an instrumentalist working on an adaptive optics system. Adaptive optics is the technology that big ground-based telescopes use to correct for the Earth's atmosphere in space pictures. I did that for a few years before going back into black holes, not the supermassive black holes I was studying before, just your average run-of-the-mill star-sized black holes. And trying to detect said star-sized black holes ended up being the bulk of my thesis work, but I did manage to throw in just a little bit of education there at the end. So I spent the better part of my 2020 year of lockdown, which was my last year of grad school, working on a study on cultural aspects of academic astrophysics programs. Like the TLDR is basically that physics and astrophysics, which is a subset of physics, has a very strong cultural hegemony, despite physicists tending to think there is no culture in their field, and how, at least in graduate programs, people who are otherwise extremely qualified and capable, but don't necessarily align with this culture, can often experience a whole extra level of challenges as they try to do something like a PhD in addition to the actual academic work, navigating the unwritten and unspoken rules, if you will. And misaligned culture can be many things. Sure, it can be a minoritized identity, but it can just as easily be coming from a low-income background or coming from a family or community in which people don't usually go to grad school. And it was really interesting work for a lot of reasons. For one, because there's currently a demand for information as to why STEM departments are having such a hard time retaining underrepresented or non-traditional students, but also just because it was fascinating to talk to so many people across different institutions who each thought that they were uniquely a problem or wrong somehow, but across universities, we're all kind of butting their heads up against this pretty consistent culture. And it was just intellectually interesting to finally be doing something that wasn't just writing code to give to a supercomputer so it could make fancy guesses as to whether or not that blip in the sky was in fact a black hole or not. The existential angst of being an astronomer, guys, it's hard to describe. So my thesis ended up being a combination of these three areas, or a stapler thesis, as it is called by academics who want to shade anyone who dares to be multidisciplinary, rather than carving out a hyper-specific niche to declare themselves the expert of. Which is not a good description, because they're not actually unrelated. The telescope that I used to make the observations in my black hole work had an adaptive optics instrument on it, very similar to the one that I had spent the previous 2 years working on. So when I went to make those observations, I actually knew what I was doing. And to be perfectly honest, a lot of observational astronomers use AO systems and do not know what they're doing. Yes, they're going to be able to take pictures, but there's a layer of applicable expertise that most people aren't bringing in. So the black hole stuff is directly informed by the instrument stuff, and the whole culture piece seems kind of unrelated at first, but without getting into the weeds of it here, I don't think I would have finished my PhD if I hadn't at some point learned how things actually work. If nothing else, because knowing how a system is broken can help you navigate it. I think the secret to dealing with imposter syndrome is learning enough to realize you're not an imposter, but there are almost definitely people above you who are. Oh, and I didn't tell you what my thesis is called. I honestly don't remember what it's called. I need to look it up. Black holes. Finding them, building instruments that help you look, and how systemic racism can prevent you from doing any of that. Honestly, I'm surprised they let me graduate. They didn't even ask me to change it. In all fairness, because it's not about my institution, technically. And then on top of that, I did a whole bunch more teaching. I think between undergrad and grad school, I must have TA'd for 10 classes. And I actually taught my own course once too. I from scratch wrote a college course on black holes that I taught by myself, and it was dope. So I wrote this thesis with an absolutely ridiculous title and graduated in May 2021 with no real job prospects. I had vague plans to eventually apply for community college jobs, but 2 days after I graduated, I think, I came across my dream postdoc, which is saying something. I thought I was done with academia, straight up, closing that door. But I was actually hired by my old physics education research group. So for the last year and some change, I've been doing that. And the research I get to do with them is fascinating. For context, physics education research consists of many things, from how students learning quantum mechanics reason through their problems and develop an intuition for such seemingly illogical things, or how to organize an academic department to effectively create new physicists. The work that I do now is very much in line with the cultural stuff I worked on my thesis. So of the 2 projects I work on, one of them is about how to best support physics departments that are trying to reform in whatever way. And the other one is about how engineering students learn or don't learn ethics in their college education. And not ethics like not plagiarizing or something like that. Ethics like the ethics of making Facebook. Macro ethics, the like broad societal scale ethics. And I want to be very clear here that while the research I do in my current postdoc position definitely informs the kind of things that I talk about on this channel, this is completely separate than that. My YouTube channel is in no way representative of the beliefs of any other employer I might have. This is mine. That's why I can be unprofessional and say like a lot. It's cold. I've been shooting for a while. But that's what I do these days. That's what you do with all the degrees and experience I have. You study ethics and science and society. So I think you're thoroughly caught up now on what my expertise is. I know it was a lot. I haven't been doing much else for the past decade. That's actually not true. I do a lot of things. But as far as you're concerned, that's what I do. So why does somebody with all these official sounding credentials start a YouTube channel in 2022? So, I don't know if you've noticed this, but I feel like in the last couple years, people seem to be getting more political. Not to say that there weren't people who were extremely political before 2020, and not to say everybody's quite gotten there even now, but there seems to be an increased awareness of the systems that kind of run our society, and a sense of wanting to do something about it. And that's good. Political consciousness is good, I think. And even within, like, STEM, I see this. And I think there's a lot of very well-meaning people who find themselves at something of a loss for what to do. Not to say that this hasn't been a thing in other sectors recently, but it's certainly more attention than I've ever seen in the past to, like, addressing issues, whether it's performative or not. And it can be both. Like I've said before, there are absolutely people who are clout chasing in academia, but there are absolutely people who understand that something's wrong and want to know what to do. I myself have had a good amount of experience with organizing in academic spaces, advocacy work, and I kind of feel like from my very specific intersection of disciplines, I have something of a bird's eye view that I think a lot of people could benefit from kind of seeing. Here's an example. One time I was organizing with a bunch of other scientists to help advocate for one researcher who was getting discriminated against. And a person in this group had this response of like, I didn't know this was happening, and I'd like to help, but I don't know what to do. I don't even know what it looks like. I don't even know what's going on. How am I supposed to be able to do anything about this thing that to me is kind of theoretical? And that was a very fair question. He was absolutely right. It is hard to be able to do anything about something you don't understand. And I want to reach people like him, other people as well. But I'm not interested in convincing people who have values opposite me. I'm interested in getting in front of people who have values similar to me and helping them articulate and engage with the things around them that they kind of have a feeling exist but don't really know what to do with. This is expository writing. I'm not trying to be persuasive. If you disagree with me, that's fine. I don't have time for pseudo-intellectual squabbles with the lowest common denominator. I think my favorite comments I've been receiving is something along the lines of, I've spent so long feeling what you're saying, but I only now have the words to communicate it. And I think that's a really powerful thing. It's powerful to understand yourself. It's powerful to understand where you are, it's powerful to understand other people. Knowledge is power. Isn't that what we learned where we also learned what a bill is? So in this moment of increased political awareness, particularly within the STEM fields, I want to arm scientists with the social and political knowledge they were likely discouraged from learning to help them be the best versions of themselves they can be, the best versions of scientists they can be. And hopefully from this you can kind of see where it's literally everything I studied that comes together for this. It's, of course, the hard physics stuff, because in order to be taken seriously by a physicist, you gotta know their thing, otherwise they don't respect you. It's the hard sciences, it's the ethnic studies and critical theory, it's the science communication, it's the education, it's even the artistic stuff that I never really pursued professionally. It's everything I've ever done coming into one. And I want to talk about all of it. But here's the thing, as much as I've enjoyed producing these videos, it's a massive amount of work. Like, it is hours and hours. It's not hours and hours, it's like tens of hours and hours. The research, the writing, the performance, learning how to light a set and shoot a video, mastering audio, editing video, all of this stuff, it takes an absurd amount of time. And like I said, I do have a job. And while it's been fun, if I wanted to continue this long term, which I do think I'm positioned to, I'm gonna need a little help. So now you know what this project is, you know what I'm trying to do, you know who I am, you know why I'm here. Let's talk about you. Like I said, I'm kind of pitching this as if I'm applying for a grant of some sort. But in reality, I don't want this work to be funded by a grant. I don't want to be able to do this because some institution decided that I'm allowed to and gave me some money with whatever strings attached. I also don't really want to take sponsorships because I feel like I could very easily get into some places where the values I'm trying to speak to in my content might contradict those motivations. Who knows what'll happen down the line, but for now I'm not trying to take sponsorships. What I am trying to do is see if I can effectively crowdfund this online accessible educational content. So for those of you who don't know, Patreon is a platform by which creators of whatever kind, like me, can have people like you sign up to pledge like $3, $5, however many dollars a month so that we can make things. And I love the idea of kind of doing like science for the people paid by the people, you know? I love the idea of breaking out of the very specific financial incentive structure of modern academic research. I love the idea of being so directly in communication with anyone and not just the few other people in their respective ivory towers who are gonna read my paper published in a journal that's behind whatever paywall. There are weirder things people have done to get funded. Like, I think I've seen some kid trying to fund their PhD by selling an NFT. Surely, if that's a thing, Patreon-funded scholarship is not that wild. So yeah, the YouTube plus Patreon model is really in alignment with my values about science. So if you haven't already and are able to, I completely understand that some people won't be able to, and that's totally fine. I want this to be free. I want this to be accessible. But if you can and would like to, consider subscribing to my Patreon. I'm not planning a ton of extra content there. We'll see as we go, but the idea is by supporting there, you're paying for me to make these videos. And I don't just mean the video about myself. I mean the other videos I have made and will continue to. I'm really excited about my next one. As a teaser, it's broadly about systems. And just for a sense of what to expect, I do plan on continuing to put out these like long video essays. I have been doing them once a month so far, but I do not anticipate keeping up that pace as they get more in-depth, and I try to do this sustainably. I would love to be out here on the most consistent posting schedule first of the month, but it's just not realistic at this point, and I want to do a good job and not rush things. So you'll see them when you see them. But you know, if enough people do this, this could be my job. Think of what I could make then. Like, you have to realize these first 3 videos I put up, they were practice. This was me just learning how to make a video. So if you aren't already there, consider joining my Patreon. And if you are there, I just want to try to express to you my gratitude. It's hard to think of ways for me to kind of genuinely communicate with like you, a specific person, who is supporting me, because
you're not here, right? I'm talking to an empty room. Theoretically, you're there and that you're going to see this at some future time. And I know you exist as a big group of people, but it's hard to talk to a big group of people when you're in a room by yourself.
But thank you. That's what I got for y'all today. I'll be back at the normal video essay thing soon. I hope you'll join me.
سبحالي هنتك وهونتيني ونسيتك بعد والعاد ونسيتيني صبرتي وكيف يا مرادي على خلافك قدرتي زمن في سبيل رضايا ما درتي حتى انقسى قلبك علي تليني واليوم عن طريقك لو ولا حودتي بلا عيب درته فيك عاديتيني اوي 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 سبحالي هنتك وهونتيني ونسيتك بعد والعاد ونسيتيني يا سبحالي هنتك وهونتيني